go over here and look at some stuff we looked at before. What we're going to do is we're just going to skim through this. We have what I call two economic boxes. There's a box that I call the economic box that all the economists and all the people, this is what we look at. Then we have a much bigger box outside of it where a lot of hidden stuff goes on that nobody or most people don't know about. But we have a world GDP in this normal, what we call economic box, of about 78 trillion now. Well, U.S. GDP is about 17, 18 trillion. U.S. debt is about 19 trillion. Forex trade's about 4 to 6 trillion a day. The world gold stock, they estimate, they total it all up, 177,000 metric tons. All the central bank gold in the world totals up to 31,500 metric tons. U.S. stock is 8,133 metric tons. And they think there's hidden money out there in offshore accounts of like 23 trillion. This is the economic box that everybody reasons in. They look at the world economy, they reason inside this economic box, and they don't realize that there's out here another world of vast resources and money that's way beyond this economic box, which we think, if we all reason in. Between these areas, between the two areas, there are gates, and they're controlled by the CIA, Interpol, SWIFT, U.S. Treasury, Federal Reserve, etc., the Bank of England, etc. All of these things control access to this area outside here. Now, what we think we have out here somewhere is 2+ million metric tons of gold. Not this 177,000 metric tons, because we have Yamashita, Black Eagle gold. There's trillion in hidden money. There's bonds seized in Italy, Philippines. There are one quad over-the-counter people out here are trading $1 quadrillion from time to time in major financial deals that are being done out here between parties, not inside here. This is all the known world. This is the reported world. This is the audited world, whatever. And this is unreported, unaudited, uncontrolled out here. This is the free world outside here. And let me if you turn that on, honey. And let's go over here and take a look at another one. We're going to take a look at who stole the Kennedy bonds. President Kennedy issued some bonds, and this gentleman here, George Washington Hunt, has done research on it. He's now dead. His research is a little bit old, but it's very interesting. Let's take a look at. First of all, we're going to look at John F. Kennedy. I thought I clicked that. There we go. Honey, I need the lights on for a second.
Sure.
Okay, now you can turn them off. Hey, we're going to talk about JFK and the silver certificate conspiracy because it's coming around again. John F. Kennedy gave a speech on April the 27th, 1961, in which he talked about there are secret societies controlling the U.S. government. He did it at the American Newspaper Publishers, and he did it at the Waldorf Astoria at that particular time, back in April of 1961. That's on YouTube. You can go listen to it. It's a really interesting speech. Then, and JFK issued Executive Order 11110 on June the 4th, 1963. 1963, he issued an executive order which then began to put U.S. silver certificates, which is a silver-backed U.S. currency, into circulation. He printed $4 billion in $1, $2, and $5 bills. Yes, we did have $2 bills back then. And and he began distributing them into society. And so we had these silver certificates for $1 circulating right alongside Federal Reserve notes for $1. And he put those $4 billion in circulation. At that time, he had printed $10 and $20 bills were printed, but they were not distributed as yet. And then a few months after he did this, he was assassinated on November 22nd, 1963. And then within 5 months, these bills right here that had never been distributed but that had been printed, they were destroyed. All the silver certificates that were put in place by him were removed from circulation by the new president, Lyndon Johnson, and all the $10 and $20 bills were destroyed at that particular time. And then we find all silver was removed from our coins later in 1964. You have silver in coins where they're called the pre-64 coins. They have silver content in them. After 1964, they did not. And Executive Order 1111 has never been has never been repealed, amended, or superseded by any subsequent executive order. It is still valid today. So a president could issue new currency today, proper currency. United States notes were issued as an interest-free and debt-free currency backed by silver reserves. We actually had silver in our vaults at that particular time, and all silver bullion in the mint was eventually sold. So if we look at this was a JFR certificate. It says right here, silver certificate. This certifies that there is on deposit in the Treasury of the United States of America in silver payable to the bearer on demand. That is, you could take this $1 bill in, take it to the mint or the U.S. Treasury, and they would give you $1 worth of silver. I mean, they did it in 1 ounce increments or something. Here is a 1935 silver certificate. Again, we had silver certificates as a part of it, where you could actually, where our money was actually backed by real silver. Here are some of the silver significant attempts of in the past of different individuals, the government and individuals. There was in 1968, the redemption of silver certificates for silver could only be made until June 24th. So you had to turn these in. Thereafter, silver certificates would be exchanged for federal notes. For a while, up into June 24th, 1968, you could exchange them. And then if you brought in your silver certificate after that, you would get a $1 Federal Reserve note. Again, we had the Hunt brothers, their attempt to corner the silver market, 1980. And then finally, the government relented in 1985 and began to mint silver bullion coins, that you collectibles. But basically, there was a real war against silver going on at that time. Here is John F. Kennedy's Executive Order 1110. We won't read through that, but because it's a little bit technical. And let me close that down. And so what we have is we have this going on, and it appears that Kennedy was assassinated over this. And we'll just go through some of the stuff that's going on, because there are more that are coming to light all the time. Let's go to in this chart. we've covered this before. It's the debasement of the U.S. dollar and a war on silver. 1789, our founding fathers established gold and silver as constitutional money. Then we have the crime of 1873, crime of 73, called the Fourth Coinage Act of 1873, which demonetized silver except in coins. We still had silver coins, and at that time, but they had helped demonetize silver. We had some silver backing in some areas for a season. Then in 1913, the Fed overhauled the financial system. Then in 1933, Roosevelt did his gold seizure. In June the 4th, JFK introduced silverback dollars. Silver are removed from circulation here. 1968, all certificates, silver certificates turned in. 1971, Nixon axed the gold backing of the U.S. dollar. And then we had the U.S. Mint begin to give us coins. But we're looking for a ban on paper currency completely and a goal of going to digital currency only. That's what we see in the complete debasement of what the founding fathers established over here has completely been undone by the founding fathers. It's taken a couple of hundred years to do it, but you can see that this is actually happening. And
so Ken, the Ethereum that will be it won't be a secure money either. I mean, just like everything else.
These are attempts. Looks like my system froze. Oh no, here it is, down here. These are attempts by others. I feel there's the whole world feels like they've been oppressed by the financial system, and people are looking for it. In particular, the youth are looking for a decentralized way of doing business and holding assets and all of that. And the youth are really driving this whole area of trying to find an alternative to the money masters controlling the money. Yes.
But aren't all these systems creating out of nothing, whether it be Bitcoin, Ether coins, SDRs, created out of nothing? They're all a phony money business.
They're all phony money.
Who controls
yes.
the phony money?
And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to come up with a system where no single entity can control it. They're trying to come up with it's crowdsourced, it's crowd controlled. What they're coming up with is these new things that I talk about are called DA.
Dead on arrival.
They are what do they call it?
Digital asset.
No, it's it is decentralized autonomous organization. Decentralized autonomous organization. They're creating these organizations that are not organizations at all. They're nothing but a computer program that runs with nobody that owns it.
Someone controls
You know what I mean?
But someone controls
Yes, somebody's the programmer. It's a program that runs, and they're pushing. This is where this is going, and so the SEC is coming out and saying, "Oh, we think you guys are really selling securities, and therefore we're going to have to do something." So they'll just sue anybody that's involved in any way. But what we find is this. Let me see if we can wrap this up in a short period of time. This is The stolen Kennedy bonds, who done it? And this is George Washington Hunt's opinion. President John F. Kennedy issued U.S. silver certificates backed by silver, not Federal Reserve paper, on June the 4th, 1963, bypassing the Federal Reserve to reestablish our own money system. He did that. He bypassed the Federal Reserve. He did it on executive order. He ordered the Treasury to do certain things. This brave president stripped the Federal Reserve bankers, the Rothschilds, of their power to loan money to the U.S. government at interest. The historic executive order 1110 to save America from the cabal of the international bankers still remains in existence, but no president since President Kennedy has had the courage to say no to the Federal Reserve. President Kennedy issued $4.3 billion into our currency flow. The currency liability was backed by and supported by legal assets of 10 $1 billion Kennedy bonds, plus any silver bullion, silver or standard silver dollars in the U.S. Treasury. So that was going to be what the president used, these Kennedy bonds and any silver bullion, silver or standard silver dollars that were stored in the U.S. Treasury, he was going to use as backing for the silver certificates, which were the $10 and the $20 silver certificates. Unfortunately, the cabal had him murdered in Dallas before the 20s were circulated. On June the 8th, 2009, the 10 Kennedy bearer bonds worth $1 billion each appeared in the luggage of 2 Japanese travelers intercepted at the Italian-Switzerland border. $10 billion in Kennedy bonds plus 249 bonds and notes worth $124 billion were stuffed in their suitcases. These bonds and notes could only have disappeared from the U.S. Treasury by authority of Secretary Timothy Franz Geithner. Previously, his name is Geithner, but his originally was Gaitner. Previously the president of the New York Federal Reserve Bank, the key bank of the Federal Reserve, he conspired with the Fed to get the bonds out of the Treasury and sell them for 40 to 60 cents on the dollar, which is with assistance from the Vatican Bank and Banco Ambrosio of Italy. Both banks have larcenous pasts. Now, what has happened is these bonds that Kennedy had issued to back the currency, silver bonds, to help back the silver certificates, ended up in the hands of the 2 Japanese officials, and we're going to talk about that. Timothy Geithner, our trusted Treasury servant, has a larcenous past. Well, we won't go into that. He didn't pay his income taxes, and he knew that he shed brothers, and all of that. Let's go down here. He claims here that the bonds were delivered to the Italian underground P2 Masonic Lodge called Propaganda Do, which attempted to sell the bonds to syndicate banks who needed to beef up their balance sheets capital sections. The Italian newspapers noted that P2 failed to sell them. The underground syndicate then arranged for the bonds to be purposely intercepted by the Italian currency authorities so that Italy could at least get their 40% fine income from the bonds. The fine amounts to over $50 billion in income to Italy at the expense of the U.S. Treasury. So, but basically what happened is this. These bonds, let me see. Let's see, I'm trying to get the right ones. Are these? These are some of them that were intercepted in Italy. As you can see them there. There are several different types of bonds there. They've got them sorted by type. This is another bust there. And this one This one shows that they have 3 Kennedy bonds there, but the one that we're interested in is the one with the 10, and we're interested in these others as well. But basically, this is called the Chiasso financial smuggling case. It began on June the 3rd, 2009, near Switzerland, near the border, when certain organizations with officers and customs detained 2 suspects who appeared to be Japanese nationals in their 50s, who had attempted to enter Switzerland with a briefcase in their possession with a false bottom containing what at first appeared to be U.S. Treasury bonds worth $134.5 billion. The 2 possessed 249 U.S. bonds worth $500 million each. Among other securities, they also had 10 Kennedy bonds denominated in $1 billion each, and the large denominations of the securities, along with accompanying bank documentation, was what attracted the Italian police's attention. Large denominations are not available to the general public. Only nation states handle such amounts of money. So what happened? They found these guys. They had 134.5 billion. They had 10 Kennedy bonds with them at $1 billion each, in their collection, and they were caught going into Switzerland, in 2009. They tried to ascertain whether these were authentic bonds or not. But you realize that they had paperwork from all the banks showing the origination and the validation and the course of travel of these bonds. But the United States government decided these bonds were fraudulent and forgeries. In fact, so assured of this that they had put a team on a plane to fly there to verify these bonds, and before the team could land, they verified that these, before they even looked at them, they verified that these were phony bonds. And so what we have out there is we have a pool of money that has just been going like crazy. Let's then we have all kinds of reactions and speculation. They identified these as phony bonds, and but the 2 men that had them, they just let them go. And they turned out they were Japanese citizens. And they questioned the Japanese government on it, and they said, well, we don't know where these citizens are. We haven't kept track of them. We don't know who they are or anything. When people investigated a little bit more, they discovered these were 2 employees of the Japanese Department of Finance in Japan, and that this was being done at the very highest level of Japan. And so they just kind of dropped it. I don't know what happened to the bonds, who got them. Berlusconi of Italy tried to get his hands on them to sell them. All kinds of things were going on behind the scenes because he at one time did control them after his agents confiscated the bonds. So I don't know what actually happened. But there are similar incidents. On September 18, 2009, a similar incident was reported by Italian financial military police, this time involving 2 apparently Philippine nationals smuggling U.S. Treasury bonds valued at $180 billion at Malpensa Airport, the largest airport in Milan, Italy. The 2 were detained, and the assessment of this case is ongoing. It's still ongoing. They're studying it since 2009. Then on January 26, 2011, another similar incident was reported by the Italian military police, this time involving 6 smuggling U.S. Treasury bonds valued at 20 billion euros and said to be counterfeit at a highway rest stop. The 6 are under investigation for receiving stolen goods. And then in February 17, 2012, reported Italian police seized $6 trillion in counterfeit U.S. bonds. My contention is none of these are counterfeit.
Why are they all Italian connected?
Because the Vatican and the mafia are definitely involved in these things, and the Illuminati P2 Lodge, which functions out of Monaco, are definitely involved in these areas. And they have, and so what do we have? We read off 4, 5, 6, whatever, into the trillions. But these are the few that have been caught by some border crossing. These are just a few that have been caught. What is it? 1/10 of 1%? Whatever it is, 1%, 0.5%, whatever it is. The rest do not get caught. They're going into Switzerland. These bonds are being put up as collateral. They're being advanced money based on this collateral to a certain percentage, not the full face value, but some small part. And that money is then being used in the world economy, which is what we call the unseen part that you don't see out there, the non-tax paying things. Have you ever taken and figured out, done any compounding interest? Many of us have done it. Sometimes if you've got a mortgage, you'll try and figure out use all the formulas. Have you ever taken $1 trillion and let it compound at 100% for 100 years? Or anything? Have any kind of clue what that would do? How much money that would be? It would just be, it'd just be numbers that you can't even imagine. We can't even. I don't even know how you would define it. But they do have things like that. They have investment programs, offshore investment programs that pay 1% a day. Things like that. That these guys are invested in. The money masters are invested in, are making money offshore, and so that's 300 and some percent a year. This kind of thing. So when you look at the real world of money, we are being squeezed. We're inside the box. We're being squeezed. There's an outside area that has so much money, so much gold, so much diamond. It's unimaginable. It is just like, have you seen the dragon that is swimming in his sea of gold coins? This fantasy that they've got in the Hobbit. This kind of thing. That's essentially what they are like out there.